Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard. This fat along with Mihawk, Shanks, Garp, Luffy, and Kaido are considered to be essentially the standard of the strongest in the current generation of pirates. However, if you've seen my other videos, it's a pretty well known fact by now that I think Blackbeard in comparison to other GOAT contenders of the verse is a lot weaker than people like to say he is, and it usually comes down to, oh, he's dumb, which I feel like isn't the best argument, especially if he's like that for every fight he participates in. With me today, I have the Sanji Enthusiast, aka Restless Gambler, who will be helping me analyze Blackbeard's power and come to the conclusion if he is or isn't fraudulent. Before talking about current Blackbeard, it is somewhat important to note how strong he actually was before attaining basically the two most broken devil fruits in the series. As we know, Teach was on Whitebeard's crew and he would go rogue after murdering one of the captains in cold blood. Even before these events, he supposedly scarred Shanks in the eye, which this feat is something I'd like to elaborate more on later when we arrive to the contentious point section. Anyway, after these events we would see him encounter Luffy, and after failing to get to Skypiea, he just kind of disappears until it's revealed that Ace finally found him and his crew and will attempt to avenge his fallen comrade. However, what Ace doesn't know is that Blackbeard by this point has attained the Yami Yami no Mi. The Yami Yami no Mi is a darkness Logia fruit that allows Blackbeard to consume things in darkness. When interacting with Devil Fruit users, he actually is able to negate their powers, putting someone like Ace in an extreme difficult situation since he can't use his abilities to the fullest. But there's a catch that should be noted with Blackbeard's fruit, in that he actually takes more damage, though the exact amount of damage he takes additionally is unquantifiable, but this should still at least speak for Blackbeard's strength. The two would then go on to clash with Ace losing to Blackbeard, leading into the events of Impel Down. Now when Blackbeard arrives, we see him being caught lacking by both Luffy and Magellan, but we see with Luffy he just slams him right after being caught off guard. As for the Magellan thing though, he probably wasn't expecting some crazy poison like Magellan's, plus you could always go the route of Magellan being relative to Shiryu, who potentially could be a monster in power. However, you guys already know how I feel about Shiryu headcanon scaling. I'm not really a big fan of that, and I think it's more logical to say that he just got caught lacking, as he does for pretty much all of his fights.
As we know, he would attempt to take Whitebeard's fruit due to him being so weakened, but this ends up backfiring with Whitebeard, who is at less than 1 HP mind you, being able to take down Blackbeard with one swing. This forced him to literally jump Whitebeard and then take his fruit, leading into Blackbeard performing a similar feat to Whitebeard and causing a massive earthquake around the world. In terms of pure energy output, calculations actually have this to be higher than the original Whitebeard feat, which is pretty ridiculous considering he just got the fruit. And due to this fact, he isn't willing to fight the likes of Akainu or Shanks at Marineford, which is reasonable considering he and his crew got body slammed by one strike from Sengoku. This is a character who is at worst relatively below Old Garp, who we've seen already scrap with the likes of Kuzan. We know at least in terms of speed he should be on this tier anyways, since Marco has shown speed relative to the admirals on occasion, and Blackbeard defeats him along with the rest of the Whitebeard pirates. As we know, Blackbeard would have 2.5 years to master his fruit, along with even building a reputation so big that he took Whitebeard's role as a Yonko. In terms of feats, we don't get much from him until like post-Wano, as he's just sitting around letting his gremlins do the work for him. It isn't until his encounters with Bow and Law where we see what he can actually do after having 2 years to master his new fruit. Now, in this encounter with Boa, he just negates her devil fruit with the Yami Yami and seemingly was going to take her fruit, but luckily Rayleigh was there to make Blackbeard run away. We also see during this encounter he reacts and blocks an attack from S-Hawk, which is the Seraphim model of Mihawk. To address the Boa stuff, it's hard to say how impressive Blackbeard defeating her is, as for one, Blackbeard hard countered the one ability she relies on, and two, is really hard to gauge where Boa herself is at currently. The most she's actually done was slam some Pacifista and stop pre-timeskip Smoker. But people find her to be strong because she has conquerors, and there's a statement of her being the strongest female pirate, which would include Big Mom. Now, this statement alone is pretty stupid, and honestly, that could be saved for a Boa related video on its own. But to keep it simple, her being above Big Mom doesn't mean much since Blackbeard directly has better showings against Law than Big Mom does, so it really doesn't matter at all. At best, this is just upscaling him for being stronger than Big Mom, which I already think this is true.
This brings us to the most recent fight Blackbeard participated in, which was against Law. Now yes, Law was getting jumped, however despite this, we see Blackbeard directly surviving attacks from Law's awakening and defeating him in the end. Blackbeard did have trouble though, and people trying to deny that are off that prescripted copium. Now that his scaling and feats are established, let's address some contentious points before getting into where he would scale among the top tiers currently. Oh, but he's the world's strongest. Now, this argument in my opinion isn't the strongest. See what I did there? so I'll just go on to address it now. This is mainly from a databook statement that says with these two fruits, Teach is the strongest, and there are two interpretations to this statement. Either you take this at face value and you think that Blackbeard with both fruits is just straight up top 1, with no actual good feats backing this up, and if you want to push your agenda, go ahead, but this video is not for that purpose. While the other and more realistic interpretation is that the two fruits make him the strongest due to their abilities. Let me explain for a second. The Gura is basically the strongest fruit we've seen, and besides like Luffy and Akainu's, it has statements of being a top tier fruit. So you arguably have the strongest fruit along with Blackbeard's darkness fruit, which negates other fruits. So using them simultaneously would theoretically make him the strongest, but that doesn't mean Blackbeard himself actually is. This is further backed up by the fact that even Blackbeard thought that the Yami Yami no Mi made him straight up the strongest. This statement as well is also just applying to teach him Marineford when he's like, you know, causing that earthquake, who by the way also said he cannot fight Shanks and ran from Akainu. Now yes, he probably has better control of his fruits now, and due to bodying Marco, he definitely at least should be above the Marineford admirals, but to say that he's top 1 because of this data book, especially with Garp and Mihawk in the way, is such a big stretch.
This leads into the next point, and that's how Blackbeard fights in character. Teach is a straight up idiot. I cannot put it any other way. The guy just laughs with his big ass belly out and gets hit by attacks he shouldn't be getting hit by, or just seems pressed by people a seemingly top 1 GOAT shouldn't be pressed by, which is why I think he 100% isn't top 1 in the verse. If you approach Shanks, Mihawk, Garp, or Akainu with that same energy, he'd probably get his organs rearranged. Even though I don't think they're fully true. But it's interesting because Blackbeard could turn off Kaido's fruit and prevent him from reaching his full power, killing him off early. I do definitely think he's at least above Big Mom based on his fight with Law, but let us know down below what you guys think about Blackbeard versus Kaido.
Now, we know Blackbeard can negate other fruits along with having one of the most powerful devil fruits, but unfortunately the feats he performs with said fruits are not the greatest. He takes more damage due to the darkness fruit along with never blitzing a character in the series aside from Gear 2 Luffy, which is pretty embarrassing. This doesn't matter too much, but I think it should just be noted that legit his best speed feats are, you know, clashing with Law and beating Marco off screen. I'm going to classify him as fraudulent until he genuinely does something in the series. Also, him scarring Shanks means absolutely nothing, as it's just an off guard, and if you want to say that Shanks was serious, you're basically saying that he would scale to a healthy Whitebeard, which that doesn't work because Whitebeard at 1 HP f***ing stomped him out, and also an old Sengoku obliterated him. Blackbeard does not scale to top tiers. So that argument of Blackbeard before having both fruits scaling to top tiers doesn't work. In conclusion, Blackbeard probably isn't a fraud in retrospect. I don't think he is. However, due to how much hype he gets, and, you know, specifically for the Blackbeard top 1 agenda, sorry not sorry, if it's an off-screen battle, always bet on Fraudbeard.